I was a little depressed, and Chuck, Dave, and Ben decided I needed to unwind, have a few drinks, and basically get over my depression and get back to normal. It made sense, and I understood it. It's time to stop feeling sorry for yourself. All three of them picked me up, and we went into town. I was a little surprised when we pulled into the parking lot of the Landing Strip Lounge. "Why here?" I asked. "It's open mic night here," Ben said, "and we think this is exactly what you need to bring yourself out of your shell." I shrugged, and we went inside, found a table, and ordered drinks. Shari, the waitress, smiled when she saw me and asked, "Where have you been, Wally? We missed you." "Been busy, Shari. Didn't have time for nightlife." On stage, Bobby Denton told one of his blonde jokes while his wife sat at a table in the back with friends. She was a platinum blonde and hated blonde jokes, and I often wondered if Bobby was getting sex from her on those open mic nights. He ended the joke and introduced a guy who wasn't very good, but I still applauded him because speaking in front of an audience is brave. When he finished, Bobby told another joke about the blonde, and then said that the microphone was now open to everyone. Chuck, Dave, and Ben started pushing me to get out, and I decided, screw it, why not? I stood up, and Bobby, seeing me, said, "Looks like Wally Taylor is about to throw himself at your mercy," and handing me the microphone, he added, "Good to see you, Wally. We've missed you." I took the microphone, looked at the crowd, took a deep breath, and said, "Today I was reading in the paper about the rise in concealed carry permits, and I thought about how some men love guns so much that they'd rather have their .38 in a steel vest than a bra. I thought about it and came up with an idea. 10 reasons why some men prefer guns to women. The 10th reason is that you can exchange the old .44 for the new .22. The 9th reason is that you can keep one weapon at home and carry another with you on the road. The 8th reason is that if you like a friend's gun and tell him so, he will probably let you shoot it a few times. The 7th reason is that your main weapon will not mind if you have a spare one. The 6th reason is that your weapon will remain with you even if you run out of ammo. The 5th reason is that weapons do not take up much space in the closet. The 4th reason is that the weapon functions normally every day of the month. The 3rd reason is that the weapon doesn't ask, "Aren't these new grips making me look fat?" The 2nd reason is that the weapon doesn't mind if you fall asleep after using it. And the 1st reason why some men prefer guns to women is, you can buy a silencer for your weapon. I got a few weak chuckles as I listed the reasons, but the last one got me laughing out loud, so I decided to continue. So, Jesus and Satan were having a long argument about who was better at computers. They had been arguing for several days, and frankly, God was tired of their bickering. Finally, tired, God said, "That's it. I'm fed up with this. I'll arrange a test that will last 2 hours, and based on the results, I'll decide who does better." So Jesus and Satan sat down at their keyboards and began to type. They used mice. They sent faxes. They sent emails. They sent emails with attachments. They were loading. Suddenly, I stopped and stared into the back of the hall, where the door to the parking lot opened and a couple entered. The crowd was wondering why I had stopped, and muffled voices could be heard discussing what was happening. I took a deep breath and collected my thoughts. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, "I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to stop my speech and get out of here right away. My wife and the bastard she's with cheats just came in from the parking lot." Heads turned to look at the back of the room, and I said, "Wave to the nice people, Julie, so they can see what a lying, cheating prostitute looks like. Like I said, I'm sorry, but if I don't leave, I'll end up in jail for sending that cheater's lover to the hospital." I hesitated for a second and then said, "Screw it, it'll be worth it," and jumped off the stage and headed towards Julie. The guy who was with her turned and hurried out the door, leaving Julie standing there like a deer blinded by the headlights of an oncoming car. Chuck, Dave, and Ben grabbed me and dragged me into the kitchen and then pushed me out into the parking lot. "Calm down, Wally. They're not worth it," Ben said. They put me in the car and Chuck drove us to the Red Fox Inn. When we got inside and sat down, Chuck ordered drinks and Dave told the waitress to make mine a double. Chuck said, "Sorry, Wally. I really thought a night out would be good for you. It's just a stupid coincidence that this bitch decided to show up at the bar today." "She wasn't a problem," I said. "If she had come alone, I would have just ignored her. But she wasn't alone. She was with him. I wish you had stopped me. I'm still going to kill that bastard someday." "Maybe, buddy, but not in front of 100 witnesses. Go slow and plan carefully. Make sure it's without witnesses and that we know when it happens so we have an alibi ready. We can help you, buddy. This asshole doesn't know us, and we can follow him, find out his daily routine, and figure out when the best time is for you to do your thing." As I sipped my Jack on the rocks, I reflected on my choices. I made a damn good choice when choosing my friends, but a terrible choice when choosing my wife. I knew what I was getting into when I chose Julie. I was just too stupidly in love for this realization to stop me. I met Julie in my first year at university. We were in the same introduction to planning course, and Reynolds divided us into teams of 5 and assigned each team a project. Julie and I ended up on the same team and spent a lot of time together in the library doing research for our project. To say that I was fascinated is to say nothing. One look into her green eyes, and I was captivated by this sexy redhead. I asked her out on a date, and she agreed. Julie kissed me at the end of our first date, and that first date led to several others, and the kissing escalated into a night in room 122 at the Fantasy Isle Motel. The next 3 months flew by, and Julie and I couldn't keep our hands off each other. We made love 3 or 4 times a week, and then one day, towards the end of those 3 months, we had an argument about something so important that I can't even remember what it was. Eventually, Julie said she didn't want to see me anymore and left. Well, to hell with you, I said to myself. But there was one problem. Over the next few months, I saw her with different guys, and it depressed me. I was head over heels in love with her, and it drove me crazy that she wasn't with me. I tried to call her several times, but could not reach her. I left messages with her roommate, but she never called back. 3 months after she left, she sat across from me while I was having lunch in the student cafeteria. "Hey, Wally." "Hi, Julie." There was an awkward pause, and then she said, "I missed you, Wally," and as if nothing had happened, we got back together and couldn't keep our hands off each other again. 4 months later, there was another fight, and Julie left again. And just like the first time, I saw her with different guys, and it pissed me off, but I couldn't do anything about it. 2 months passed, and then she came up to me again and said that she missed me, and we got back together again. This happened 4 more times before the end of the last course. Each time the separation lasted 2 or 3 months, and then Julie again pretended to miss me. Sooner or later, I had to understand what was going on, and I did. I realized that as soon as Julie noticed a guy she was interested in, she would have a fight, go off and date that guy, maybe a few, and then come back to me and tell me she missed me, which, in general, is what I accepted. However, the program has changed slightly. I started dating other girls, and although I was able to have fun, none of the girls I dated encouraged me to commit to a long-term relationship. I was too attached to Julie, and I think she knew it, so she was in no hurry to get back to me when she saw me with other girls. I wasn't particularly happy about it, but I found some comfort in the fact that she always came back to me. There were 4 months left before graduation when she started this drama again, but knowing what was what, I was ready for it. I had a cousin that Julie had never met, and in exchange for help with her car, she agreed to be my fake girlfriend. I made sure Julie saw us together as often as possible. When Julie left, she was gone for 2 to 4 months, but suddenly Julie came back to me after just 2 weeks. I think she realized that she was in danger of losing her backup position and decided to return to her home base before it was too late. This time, the plan didn't work out as she expected. As usual, I was sitting in the student cafeteria having lunch when she sat down and began her monologue about how she missed me, and I replied, "I can't say the same, Julie. In fact, Mary kept me so busy that I barely noticed your absence." I looked at my watch and said, I have to go, or I'll be late for the next lecture. See you, Julie, and I got up and left. I knew what would happen next. Julie knew my schedule and knew that after class I would be at the library studying. Of course, she came there and sat down at the table next to me. What do you need, Julie? I've come to eat my pride, Wally. Eat your pride? Yes, Wally, admit your mistakes. The last fight was only because of my stubbornness. It was completely my fault, and I wanted to make up almost immediately, but my stupid pride got in the way. You know the old saying, don't apologize, it's a sign of weakness. That's what was going through my head. So why now? Because I don't want to lose you to another girl. You may be late, Julie. Things are going very well between Mary and me. Don't say that, Wally. You are my man. You were made for me, and I know it. We are meant for each other, Wally. We are soulmates, and you know it. I see no reason to come back to you, Julie. I am a student, and as a student, I know that history always repeats itself. In 3 or 4 months, you will leave again, and I am tired of this roller coaster. 3 or 4 months with you, and then 2 or 3 months without you, and this cycle repeats itself. I need something more stable, and I think Mary can give me that. I looked at my watch and said, it's time to pick up Mary for a date. See you. And I walked away again, leaving her. The next day at lunch, Julie sat opposite me again, and I looked at her without saying a word. She took a deep breath and then said, do I have to beg you, Wally? Beg? For what? So that you can take me back. I think this will come as a surprise to you, Julie, but I'm not stupid. I fully understand that you picked fights to date other guys and only came back to me when you got tired of them. In 4 months, I'll get my diploma and I'll start my career and I'll need to focus on this. I won't have time for these stupid games. She turned away and said, okay, you're right, but it's not because I didn't love you. I'm young and free, and I wanted to try something new before settling down, but I couldn't do it while we were together. It wouldn't be right. No more games, Wally. I'm serious about not letting another girl get her hands on you. I want to believe it, Julie, I really do, but I don't know if I can risk trusting you not to keep doing what you've been doing. I swear to God, Wally, no more games. We got back together, and a year later, we were still together, and Julie started hinting that she wanted to get married. I mostly ignored these hints until one day Julie asked outright, are you going to marry me, Wally? The honest answer to your question, Julie, is, I don't know. Every time I think about it, I think about all those times you left to play with another guy and ask myself, do I want to risk that it will happen again? If this happens while we are not married, this is one thing, but if it happens when we are already married, it is completely different. If this happens in marriage, it will lead to divorce, which can not only be expensive, but also very bitter. Oh, come on, Wally. I've made it clear that you are my man, and I would never do anything to tear us apart. She convinced me even though I still had doubts deep down. I made sure she understood that I have zero tolerance for other men. Even flirting. We both found jobs in our fields and began living the American dream. We saved up for a down payment and bought a very nice 3-bedroom house in a good area. We had our own cars and all the other bells and whistles like a big TV, the latest home computers, modern appliances, and of course the best iPhone models. Julie and I were still making love 3 to 4 times a week, even after 7 years of marriage. We had a rich social life. We had a close group of friends with whom we had barbecues and went to parties. One of our favorite activities was visiting the Landing Strip Bar for open mic nights. One night we were there with Ben and Wilma Farmsby, Chuck Morris, his wife Bea, and Dave Bennings, and when Bobby Denton, the host, announced that the mic was open to everyone, Ben called me up on stage. The others supported him, and I was tipsy enough to accept the challenge. As I walked toward the stage, I thought about some jokes I'd heard recently and decided to start with a fishing joke. I took the microphone, introduced myself, and said, one woman walked into Cabela's to buy a rod and reel for her grandson's birthday. She didn't know which one to choose, so she just grabbed one and took it to the counter. The salesman was standing behind the counter wearing dark glasses, and the woman said to him, "Excuse me, sir, can you tell me something about this rod and reel?" "Ma'am, I'm completely blind, but if you drop them on the counter, I'll tell you everything by sound." She didn't believe him, but she still dropped the rod and reel on the counter, and the seller said, "It's a 6-foot Shakespeare rod in graphite with a Zebco 404 reel and 10-pound line. It's a good all-around set, and it's only $20 this week." As she searched for her credit card in her bag, she said, "It's amazing that you can tell just by the sound they make when they hit the counter." The credit card fell from her fingers and fell to the floor, and the seller said, "It's like MasterCard." The woman bent down to pick up the card and accidentally released gas, and the smell was very specific. At first, she was confused, but then she realized that a blind seller would not be able to determine that it was she who did it. Being blind, he could not know that she was the only person around. She handed him her card, and when he punched the check, he said, "Your total bill is $34.50. The woman was confused and said, "Didn't you say the rod and reel cost $20? How did you get $34.50? "Yes, ma'am, the rod and reel are only $20, but the duck decoy is $11, and the catfish bait is another $3.50. The woman paid and left without saying a word. This joke got a lot of laughs, so I decided to try another one. Murphy came to Mass one Sunday, and the priest almost fell when he saw him. Murphy had never been to church in his life. After Mass, the priest caught up with Murphy and said, "Murphy, I'm so glad you decided to come to Mass. What made you come?" "I have to be honest with you, Father. I recently lost my hat, and I really loved that hat. I know McGlynn has the same hat, and he comes to church every Sunday. I also knew that he would take his hat off during Mass, and I assumed he would leave it at the back of the church, so I was going to leave after communion and steal McGlynn's hat." The priest said, "Well, Murphy, I noticed you didn't steal McGlynn's hat, so what changed your mind?" "After I heard you preach on the 10 Commandments, I decided I didn't need to steal the hat." With tears in his eyes, the priest smiled at Murphy and said, "After I talked about thou shalt not steal, you decided it was better to go without a hat than to burn in hell, right?" "No, Father, after you talked about thou shalt not commit adultery, I remembered where I left my hat." That got a good laugh, too, so I worked up the courage to try a few more jokes. I have a few stories of arguments that I'd like to share with you. My wife sat on the sofa next to me as I changed channels. "What's on TV?" she asked. "Dust," I replied. And then the quarrel began. My wife has been dropping hints about what she wants for our upcoming anniversary. She said, "I want something shiny that goes from 0 to 150 in 3 seconds. I bought her a scale, and that's when the fight started. And finally, on Saturday morning, I got up early, quietly got dressed, made myself a sandwich, took the dog, and quietly went out to the garage. I hitched the boat to the truck and started driving out of the garage in the pouring rain. The wind was blowing 50 miles per hour, so I went back to the garage, turned on the radio, and learned that the weather would be bad all day. I returned to the house, quietly undressed, and went back to bed. I pressed myself against my wife's back, now with a different anticipation, and whispered, "The weather outside is terrible." My loving wife of 10 years replied, "I know. I can't believe my stupid husband is out fishing right now." And that's how the quarrel began. I had a lot of laughs, but what I enjoyed the most was the feeling I got performing in front of everyone. I liked it so much that I started doing it at almost every open mic night. It got to the point where Bobby started saying things like, "I see Wally Myers is with us today. Is there anything you'd like to share with us, Wally?" I always had something to say. I didn't write or come up with my own jokes, but I looked for them and used the ones I really liked. This was not always successful. Sometimes a joke I liked turned out to be a flop for the public. The audience let me know when they didn't like a joke, but that only made me more determined to make sure they had a real laugh next time. From my point of view, life was good. Until that evening when Julie changed everything. It all started at dinner. We had just finished eating and were starting on dessert strawberry pie, if that makes sense, when Julie said the 7 words that usually make men's blood run cold because they are preparing to hear something they clearly won't like. Darling, you know that I love you, right? The correct response to this is to get up and run out of the room, but the correct response is not what is expected, so I said what I had to say. Of course I do, Julie. You should have known this a long time ago. What brings you to such a question? I don't think I've ever mentioned Jake Holder to you. It didn't make much sense. He's just a guy who works in my office. Basically, Jake is a real Casanova in the office. He's dated every single girl in the office, and even with a couple of married people. But the fact is that, according to the girls who dated him, his physiology is incredibly different from all men. And we talk about Jake at our dinner because she was silent for a second and then said, "The thing is, it's my turn now." Your turn for what? Go to dinner with Jake. He wants me to go to dinner with him on Friday. I just stared at her. After a few seconds, I said, "Dinner with him is a euphemism for sex, right?" She turned away and didn't answer. So let me get this straight. Are you telling me this because you're going to do it, or do you just want my permission? What is it, Julie? She was still avoiding looking at me as she said, "It won't hurt us, Wally. It will only be one time, and it will only be sex. There will be no feelings or affection there. I love you, and I will never leave you for anyone. Something else. I'll just satisfy my curiosity." I can't believe it. I swear it won't hurt us, Wally. It didn't hurt either of those times. In what cases? Did you cheat on me? I mean, before we got married. Every time we broke up, it was so I could satisfy my curiosity, and once I satisfied it, I always came back to you. Were all those fake fights just so you could satisfy your curiosity? So, just for fun, tell me about them. Why? All this is in the past. You've satisfied your curiosity, and now I want to satisfy mine. I don't want to get into it, Wally. So what you're saying is that you can satisfy your curiosity, but I can't. It's not like that, Wally. I'm just not proud of what I did. And what did you do? I just wanted to try other guys, Wally. I didn't want to get married and settle down and then spend my life wondering what it would be like with other guys. I decided to satisfy my curiosity while I was still single. But I always came back to you, Wally. I've always been yours. It didn't seem to work. What didn't work? Your plan is to satisfy all your curiosity before marriage. I don't understand. Of course you do, Julie. You've been married for 7 years and you want to sleep with this Jake guy because you're curious. You still haven't answered my question. What question? I asked if you told me this at dinner to ask for permission or to say that you intend to do this. She didn't answer. Come on, Julie, it's an easy question. Are you asking or telling? She still didn't look at me when she said, I may have let him know that I was willing to go to dinner with him. It's not that difficult, is it? I got up from the table to leave, and she asked, Where are you going? To the bedroom. I need to pack my things and move into one of the guest rooms. I'll stay there until I find an apartment. No, Wally, no. Yes, Julie, yes. I told you before we got married that I have zero tolerance for other men. I even said that it's my policy that even flirting is unacceptable. You've gone much further than just flirting, Julie. Have dinner with the Casanova office. Just because you have a cue to have sex with him is way, way beyond the mark. But I didn't set up dinner with him. I just let him know that I might agree. I wouldn't do anything without talking to you first. Bullshit, Julie. If you let him know it, then you want it. And if you want it, sooner or later you will do it. If not at dinner on Friday, then another time. Where did you even get the idea? What can you tell me about this? And I'll just smile and say, sure, Julie, go have fun. What did I do to make you think so badly of me? I don't think badly of you, Wally. I just thought that. No, you didn't, Julie. If you really thought, you'd know better than to do it. If you did, you'd just go and cheat on me behind my back. Well, look on the bright side, Julie. I'm leaving, so now you're free to do your thing. I left, leaving her in the kitchen, and headed upstairs to move into one of the guest rooms. It took me 2 days to find an apartment I liked, and during those 2 days I avoided Julie and her attempts to get me to talk to her. The night I moved my things out of the house, Julie cried and begged me not to leave. She grabbed my hand and tried to drag me back into the house until I pushed her away and left. The next morning, I went to the bank and withdrew all the money from our joint accounts. We lived in a no-fault divorce state, so Julie would get half of everything in the divorce anyway, but I had no intention of filing for divorce. We had separate credit cards, so there was no need to change anything there. I just decided to distance myself from Julie, and that was it. I moved to a new apartment and went into self-isolation. My mood was too bad to communicate with anyone, so I just went to work and came home to watch TV or read books I borrowed from the library. Julie called me at work 2 or 3 times a day, but I never answered her calls. I told my secretary Marcia to tell Julie that I would not be answering her calls and that she should stop calling. Marcia smiled and said, "If I do this, I won't be able to tease her." Tease her. The last time she called, I told her that when you and I go to lunch, I'll try to convince you to call her back. Yesterday, her last call was around 4, and I told her that you and I would stop after work for a drink. And if the right moment comes up in the conversation, I will mention that she wants to talk to you. Why are you doing this? To prepare her for when you and I are together. Are we going to be together? We will, if I can arrange it. What am I missing? I wanted you ever since I came to work for you, but you were married and I don't break up families, so I just put you on the list of things I wanted but couldn't have. And then suddenly you and your wife, you're in a fight, and I think maybe I have a chance after all. Are you serious? Undoubtedly. Before we could continue our conversation, the phone rang and Marcia answered. This is Barton. He wants to see you in his office. As I walked away from her desk, I thought that maybe I would actually give her a chance. In addition to calling me at work, Julie called my cell phone several times a day, but as with work calls, I never answered. We had a security guard at the entrance to the building, and he was a good friend of mine. Danny joined the Army straight out of high school and lost his leg in Iraq to an explosive device. He was having a hard time finding a job, so I helped him get a job as a security guard. I told him about my breakup with Julie and warned him that she might try to come to my work, and I didn't want to see her. He said he wouldn't let her through, and I knew he would. 3 times she tried to get past Danny, but to no avail. Danny even went so far as to keep an eye on the parking lot and alert me when she showed up there to wait for me after work. Forewarned, I could have avoided meeting her. 3 weeks later, I was having lunch at Mario's restaurant with my boss when Julie and some guy walked in and sat at a table near the entrance. I was sitting at the far end of the hall, and she didn't notice me. A minute later, 2 more men came in and joined Julie. I knew one of them from her company's Christmas parties and picnics, and when Sam got up to go to the toilet, I got up and followed him. Sam recognized me and said hello, and I asked him who the guy Julie was sitting with was. His name is Jake Holder. Why do you ask? Just curious. I don't really like the way he looks at her. I finished my business, washed my hands, and returned to my desk, thinking that Julie had probably already hooked up with the guy and satisfied her curiosity. Apparently, Sam told Julie he saw me in the restroom because she looked over and noticed me. Luckily, Barton and I were finishing lunch and ready to leave. Julie stood up and walked towards us, and I told Barton I'd be back at the office later, then stood up and headed for the back exit. Julie caught up with me before I could leave the restaurant and grabbed my hand. Damn it, Wally, talk to me. I didn't do anything, Wally. I swear to God, I didn't do anything. Maybe you didn't, Julie, but on the other hand, maybe you did. I don't know. But one thing I know for sure is that you damned wanted to do it, and with me gone, nothing stopped you. Why did you get up from the table to chase me? Won't Mr. Special be mad at you for leaving him? Come on, Wally, we're just here for lunch. And last time, we supposedly went to dinner only for lunch, but we both know that's not true, right? I pulled my hand away and ran, knowing that she couldn't catch me in her high heels. That was the last time I saw her until she showed up at the landing strip that night. We had one more drink at Red Fox, and then the guys took me home. The next day at 11:30, Marcia walked into my office and said, "I think you should invite me to lunch, and we can talk about what we're going to do tomorrow night." Tomorrow evening. It's Friday, and Friday night is party time. And what? I told you that we would be together if I could arrange it, and since you didn't make a single attempt, I decided that it was on me. Have you forgotten that I'm married? On the wife you don't live with, whose calls you don't take, and whose you don't want anything to do with. I'm still married, and as long as I am, I will honor the marriage vows I made. I may be old-fashioned, but that's the way I'm wired. You can still invite me to lunch, and we can talk and get to know each other better, so that when you're free again, we'll know if we want to continue. It was an enjoyable lunch, and I learned enough about Marcia to know that when I start dating again, I would be interested in pursuing a relationship with her. I survived the weekend thanks to the help of Ben, Dave, and Chuck. We played golf on Saturday and went to the bars in the evening. On Sunday, I did household chores, cleaned the apartment, washed clothes, and went grocery shopping. I took Marcia out to lunch again on Monday and was in a good mood when I got home from work. But this good mood disappeared when I got out of the car and saw Julie sitting on the porch of my apartment. How the hell did you find me? I followed you from work last Thursday. I sat here in the parking lot almost every night, trying to work up the courage to ring the doorbell. You had the courage to tell me that you were going to sleep with another man, and that took a lot more courage than ringing the doorbell. Why are you here, Julie? I came to beg you to come home. My life is terrible without you, Wally. I need you. Are you saying you need me? What about Mr. Special? There was nothing between me and Jake. So you're saying that I made it up that I saw you at lunch with him and that you came to the landing strip with him. First of all, I wasn't at dinner with Jake. I was at dinner with Sam, Alex, Mary Ellen, Alice, and Jake. Mary and Alice just weren't there yet. Second, I wasn't on a date with Jake that night. In the landing strip, you weren't answering my calls, and you were avoiding me at work, so I told our friends to call me if they saw you anywhere. Alma Beaker called me and said you were in the landing strip, and I called Jake so he could meet me there, and then we wanted to talk to you. Jake came there to tell you that nothing happened between us. I swear to God, Wally, nothing happened. It's not a problem, Julie. The problem is that you wanted it to happen. The problem is that you thought so poorly of me that you even entertained the idea that I would just smile and tell you to go and have fun. That's it. Our time together, and you still don't know me that well. Okay, I admit that I made a mistake, and yes, I wanted to, but not at the expense of losing you. Please, Wally, come home to me. Please. I don't know, Julie. I just don't know. You've given me thoughts that I'll probably never be able to get rid of. What thoughts? Now that you know my position, I think the next time your curiosity piques again, you just won't talk about it. You'll just do it behind my back, hoping I'll never find out. I don't think so. That you want to live with the fact that I will constantly monitor you to make sure that you are not doing something that you should not. I'll just make sure you always know where I am and what I'm doing. This is working against you, Julie. I will wonder what exactly you are hiding so hard. You have destroyed my trust in you, and you will never be able to get it back. There will always be something that makes me doubt. A simple example, if you get a flat tire on the way home from work, and you'll be late home. Was it really a tire, or did you stop at the motel for quick sex with Jake? Or maybe not even at the motel, but just on the desk in the office after everything. Went home. Even if you drag me outside and show me a flat tire, I'll think you got it on purpose to create an alibi for yourself. That's what your life will look like, Julie. I can live with this, Wally, as long as I'm with you. The problem is, Julie, I don't know if I can live with this. We have to try, Wally. Please, we have to try. I don't know, Julie. It's something I need to think about. Please, Wally, I'm begging you. I'm not promising anything, Julie, but I'll think about it and call you next week. Next week, but next week, Julie, it's either this or nothing. She cried as she got into the car and drove away, but I didn't feel sorry for her because she had put herself in this. I really thought about it, thought long and hard, and finally decided to give it a try. Was Julie involved with Jake while we were apart? I don't know, and unless there's a confession from someone involved, I'll never know. But one thing I knew for sure was that I would be keeping a close eye on Julie. One of the things I knew about Julie was that she never gave up when she wanted something. After we moved back in together, Julie actually did what she said she would do. She did everything to let me know where she was and with whom. She came home from work on time every evening and even asked me to go shopping with her, and I sometimes went. Often enough that she gets used to the idea that I may or may not go, so that she can never arrange to meet Jake during her shopping excursions. As I said, Julie was very driven. I knew that if she wanted something, she would work to get it. She may have already gotten her chance with Jake, but because of the emotional turmoil I caused her by leaving, she may have backed down. Now that I'm back and she feels more confident, will she do it again? Or maybe she's already tasted what Jake has to offer and wants more. If this is the case, she will need to do this during work hours or perhaps during long lunches. It was expensive, but Julie paid for it in a way, even if she didn't know it. I had a savings account that Julie didn't know about. For years, I had saved money from every paycheck there and planned to use it for a surprise cruise for our 10th anniversary, but I withdrew the money and used it to hire a detective agency, Spencer Investigations, to monitor Julie at work. It turned out to be not so difficult. They didn't have to watch her all day. They simply stood outside the building watching her half an hour before her lunch break and half an hour after, and if she didn't come out for lunch, they stopped watching for the day. If she went out, they accompanied her. They did this until they were able to sneak someone into the building as a janitor and bug Julie and Jake's workspace, after which all they could do was listen to the recordings. It was 3 weeks after I returned home before Julie felt like she could make a move. This did not come as a surprise to me thanks to the installed bugs. An example of one of the conversations. One Tuesday. Jake, are you ready, sweetie? Julie, not yet, honey. I still need to earn my husband's trust. Jake, I'll wait, honey. I know you're worth it. On Friday. Jake, it's been a week, sweetie. Julie, one more, love. My husband is starting to feel comfortable with me again. Jake, let's just do it. Let's wait until everyone leaves tonight and get down to business. Julie, where? Jake, on the table. Hell, on the copier so we can take a photo. Julie, the hell with it, Jake. No photos. Nothing that could come up later. Besides, I want to do it on the bed. Plan a long lunch by the end of next week. Jake, why next week? Julie, because then I'll start having girl days and I'll have an excuse why I can't make love to Wally. Wednesday next week. Julie, plan a long lunch tomorrow, love. Jake, how long? Julie, we'll leave an hour early and come back an hour and a half later. That'll give us 2.5 hours. Arrange it so we don't have to waste time on decorating. Jack, you got it, honey. Armed with knowledge of when this would happen, Spencer detectives dispatched their men to follow Jake and Julie to dinner. They were followed to the downtown Marriott, where they went up to the third floor and entered room 316. They stayed in the room for 2 hours and 15 minutes. According to the detective's report, Julie did not look happy when she left the room, unlike Holder, who had a smug smile on his face. The office bug gave us a better idea of what happened. The following conversation took place between Julie and Glenda, one of the employees. Leave me alone, Glenda. I don't want to talk to you right now. Why not? You should be in high spirits after a long lunch with Jake. Upbeat? This man is a real pig. I can't believe you all said how good he is in bed. He's really bad, isn't he? You knew, but you still said he was great? Do you hate me that much? I don't hate you at all, but you managed to annoy me and Joan. What did I do to deserve this? You looked down on us because we were married and slept with Jake. I didn't look down on you. I was damn jealous of you. Well, it wasn't that obvious to us. Anyway, we decided to push you towards it until you did it yourself. It wasn't hard. All you had to do was praise him and say how unforgettable it was, and so on. Was everyone in the office aware? Was everyone lying about how great he was? Not everyone, just me and Joan. The single girls didn't have much experience, so it was something special for them. We could see in your face how much you wanted to experience this, but we never expected you to go to this because everyone here knows how attached you are to your husband. We just decided to push you to this. Thank you so much. You made me risk my marriage for an asshole. You mean you won't play with him anymore? Are you going to give up all this joy? Go to hell, Glenda. And then there was laughter as Glenda walked away. A short time later, another conversation took place. What do you want, Joan? I came to apologize. It was mean of me, and I just wanted to say how sorry I am that I was a part of this. Apology accepted. In a way, you did me a favor. What favor? You showed me that even if the grass seems greener on the other side of the fence, it can be full of weeds. I have a true treasure in Wally, and I will never risk what I have with him again. Never. I feel the same way. I was stupid to risk what I have for greener grass that turned out to be not so green. That's it, the moment of decision. She still changed and satisfied her curiosity, but the result was not what she expected. In her conversations with colleagues, she admitted that she was taking a foolish risk with her marriage and seemed to be sincere in her feelings for me. I loved her, I always had, but could I live with the knowledge that she was unfaithful? She said she would never take risks again, but could she keep that promise if the urge came again? She was curious about Jake, but it turned out to be a disappointment. What if she bumps into someone else? Will she wonder if he can use it better than Jake? Will her curiosity push her to try again? I couldn't know this for sure. I also couldn't afford to monitor her 24/7s. Was I ready to take such a risk? That was the question. Was I willing to take the risk? After much thought and mental anguish, I decided to keep everything I learned to myself and give Julie a chance to prove my fidelity. I kept all the materials in a safe place, hoping that I would never have to take them out and present them to her. I arranged with the Spencer Detective Agency to leave bugs in the office and send me recordings of conversations that took place at her workplace every week. It cost me $100 a month, but I thought it was a worthwhile expense. Some time spent online and a visit to Walmart allowed me to purchase everything I needed to install a recorder on our home phone. It may have been a waste, but for me the principle of trust but verify remained relevant. It was a Wednesday evening, and we were sitting at a table in the landing strip bar that was shared with another table. Ben, Dave, Chuck, and their wives were with us, as well as Julie and I. Some of the bar patrons looked at our table with curiosity, probably having been there the night I made a scene and now wondering why we were getting back together. On stage, Bobby Denton announced that the microphone was open to everyone. Julie nudged me and said, "Come on, Wally. You need to finish the joke you started when Jake and I walked in." Everyone at the table supported her in unison, and I stood up and walked towards the stage. When Bobby handed me the microphone, he asked, "You're not going to make a scene again, are you?" "Don't worry, Bobby. Everything is under control." I took the microphone and said, "I was reminded that I had to finish the joke I told last time when I lost it amid anger and frustration. Since there are probably people here who weren't here that night, they won't understand if I just tell the ending, so I'll start over. So Jesus and Satan had a long argument about who was better at computers. They had been arguing for several days, and frankly, God was tired of their arguing. Finally, God said, "That's it. I can't stand it anymore. I'll arrange a test that will last 2 hours, and based on its results, I'll decide which of you is better." So Jesus and Satan sat down at their keyboards and began to work. They were printing. They worked with mice. They sent faxes. They sent emails. They sent emails with attachments. They were downloading files. They created tables. They wrote reports. They made business cards and postcards. They created charts and graphs. They were looking for information about their ancestors. They did everything that can be done on a computer. And suddenly, 10 minutes before the end of the test, lightning lit up the sky, thunder rumbled, rain began to fall, and of course, the electricity went out. Satan stared at his screen and began shouting everything he knew from the vocabulary of the underworld. Jesus just sighed. Finally, the power came back, and they each restarted their computers. Satan began frantically searching for his files, shouting, "They're gone. Everything's gone. I've lost everything I've done in the last 2 hours." Meanwhile, Jesus calmly began printing out all of his files from those 2 hours of work. Satan noticed this and exploded with rage. "Wait," he shouted. "It's not fair. He's cheating. Why does he have all his files, but I have nothing?" God just shrugged and said, "You should know the answer to that. It's written on the bumper stickers of half the cars in the world." Satan looked at God in bewilderment, and God said, "Jesus saves." When I finished, the room erupted in applause and laughter, and I felt like it went better this time. But the most important thing for me was that, standing on that stage, I felt at ease again, and this time everything ended peacefully. I realized that this moment was a symbol that I had made the right choice. Despite everything that happened, I decided to give Julie a second chance. Life went on, and I hoped that the future would bring us both more happiness and peace than the past. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because